Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. I had given you some tips last Friday, how to support our immune system for the coronavirus. And I have some new information this afternoon that I would love to share with all of you. And most of it is about food, and some of it is about environment as well. And I probably will touch on a couple more ideas on supplements too, time permitting. So, first of all, one thing we have found out is that the air temperature is really critical to fighting off viruses. The reason why we have more colds and other viral infections in the winter months is because we tend to have the heat on at a much higher level in the homes, in our offices, in hospitals, and wherever the indoors are, right? So the new information is that you must keep the air moist. So running a humidifier would help. Ideally, the humidity in the rooms should be 65%. So if you can gauge that, that will be extremely helpful. And they have found through research that viruses are less likely to attach to our mucous membranes in our nasal passages, our respiratory membranes, and other important membranes throughout the body. So let's all focus on keeping the air quality at the right temperature and humidity. So keep your home slightly cooler, wear more clothes if you're cold or chilly. That would be better for you overall. Some ideas that I found when reading and researching is that even attacks of asthma, respiratory sinusitis, any other types of upper respiratory infections, the dryness in the air tends to be a huge factor. And what often happens is that we dehydrate faster in drier air. So if you keep the air more moist, you tend to dehydrate less. And therefore, you have a better ammunition overall at fighting infections. And, unfortunately, when I go visit people in the hospitals, in the past, you find, and even in rehab centers, that it's always overheated, and that's one of the worst things they could be doing for people. It's so important if they could run humidifiers or keep the temperature a little bit cooler, it would be so much healthier for everyone. So that's one major suggestion I'm offering to all of you. Cleveland Clinic reported a research study that was done where they ran a humidifier, and in 2 hours, 30% of all the viruses in the air were destroyed. I mean, that's a staggering statistics. So this is coming straight, guys, from conventional, traditional research institutions. So that is number one. Number two, for us to be optimally healthy, we have to be at a healthy pH. Many of you know, as I've instructed you in the past, keep your urinary pH between 6.4 and 7. So one way to make sure that we keep a healthy pH is eating a lot more raw fruits and veggies, as well as more of a plant-based diet. But some other healthy tips that you can do is to use or incorporate Aloe Pro, which is an aloe vera concentrate that we use here in my office, 2 tablespoons in 8 ounces of warm water. You can also use raw apple cider vinegar, a couple of tablespoons also in warm water, and drink that 2 to 3 times during the day. So that's one way to maintain a healthy pH, and it will also be very energizing for you as well too. And, another idea that popped into my head this morning when I woke up is, you know what? It's spring. Today's the first day of spring, March 20th. And what happens during spring season? We are going into allergy season. And what are the symptoms of allergies? Extremely similar to picking up the coronavirus. You get dehydrated more easily. You get a dryness in your throat. You get sore throats, okay? You get more congested from the pollen and the new growth, the new plant growth that's out there. So some of you may start to freak out and say, oh my God, I have the coronavirus. So I'm just trying to calm you down and to let you know, just be mindful of that, because most likely you're being exposed to what's going on outside, particularly if you're taking walks outdoors, walking your dogs, being out a little bit more with the warmer weather. So don't panic. So just be mindful of that. So that's another reason why we need to keep our immune system more balanced. And we did talk about last week supplements to help balance the immune system. And just to reiterate that, you remember oregano is one of the most powerful antivirals, in addition to nucleoimmune, propolis immune, pneumoven, immunoven, and so on. But some very fascinating research that I just heard earlier this week is that matcha tea specifically has been found in Japan. They're doing some research currently right now that it can actually attack the coronavirus. So this is something they're doing in Petri dishes in the lab that they're actually researching. So we now understand that green tea is definitely an antiviral, but more specifically matcha tea, if you're drinking that orally, or what I prefer people to do is to put the matcha tea in their smoothies. Do a teaspoon into your smoothies to get the full benefit, because again, it's raw, it's not being heated up when you're drinking it as tea. Another major suggestion is green tea extract. So taking that in a capsule form has also been found to be extremely beneficial at also warding off viruses too. So that was some very exciting new information that I wanted to share with all of you this week. Moving on to foods, there's been some new information that oxalates in our food, particularly like spinach and kale, can be damaging because the oxalates will increase more inflammation in the body. And we now understand with the coronavirus that it is an inflammatory response that particularly weakens and attacks the lungs, and that's why you get the shortness of breath or the tightness in the chest. So please avoid foods like spinach and kale and Swiss chard. Rhubarb is in that category. Those tend to be the very high oxalates containing foods. These foods also make you more prone to kidney stones because they are so acidic that they completely change your pH. Goji berries, unfortunately, is another food that does that as well. And don't overdo chocolate. Particularly if you're eating milk chocolate, definitely get rid of milk chocolate. But a little bit of cacao powder, a little bit of cacao nibs, a little bit of really good quality dark, chocolate would be fine. But definitely stay away from milk chocolate. And in addition to other types of oxalates in our diet, beans have some, contain some in the diet, but fortunately, it's not something we tend to consume in such huge amounts. So if you're eating anywhere from a half a cup to 1 cup of beans a day, that is fine. I really strongly encourage most of you, or all of you, I should say, to really follow and adhere more of a plant-based diet, because in general, a lot of these viruses over the years that have come out, the SARS, the MERS, they are usually found in animal products, and that's how we get exposed to that. So the more we can minimize our intake of animal products, we're much less likely to also be exposed that way. So I really want you to start to really take that seriously. And also, let's make sure that we stay hydrated. Last week, I mentioned to you about drinking a quart of water, first thing in the morning, at least, drink it for at least 2 to 3 hours. If you can't drink it within, 1 to 2 hours, that's fine. But hydrate. Don't eat during that period when you're hydrating with that quart of water, which some of it I did mention could be green tea, but it has to be an organic green tea. So make sure about that. You're welcome to add a few drops of lemon or lime, fresh lemon or fresh lime to that would be fine. But in addition to that, because the hydration aspect is so critical to keep our mucous membranes moist, because viruses cannot stick to moistness in your nasal passages or in your throat or down your respiratory area. So drink at least half your body weight in fluids. So to give you an example, if you weigh 150 pounds, half of that is 75 pounds. So that would equate to 75 ounces of fluid a day. So make sure you track how much fluid you're taking in. And fluids should always be kept away from your meals, because if you drink with your meals, you're more likely to get bloated, so try not to do that. Another major benefit of healing foods would be the raw onions, the raw garlic, ginger, turmeric, oregano as a spice, but even oregano tea. So try and get oregano tea, a very good quality oregano tea. So all these things will help to fight off viruses, but they really help to keep our immune system healthy and balanced. If you cannot tolerate raw onions or garlic, then eating fermented, veggies like sauerkraut, okay, or fermented beets or fermented carrots, anything like that in the fermented veggie category, at least a half a cup of that a day would be extremely beneficial to get healthy probiotics in the diet, but they will really improve your gut immunity response as well. Because remember, 70%, yes, 70% of your immunity is in your gut. So you want to keep the gut as healthy as possible. Please avoid gluten, please avoid dairy. Dairy tends to create more congestion and mucus. It clogs us up, so that would not be helpful during this time for all of us, and especially around allergy season. Try and include more raw, citrus fruits like oranges and tangerines, grapefruits, particularly the pink grapefruits are fine. To help us with vitamin C, potassium intake. Kiwis is another very good one, getting enough potassium in the diet. Bananas are fine, provided they're not overripe. They should be just yellow. So that too will give you a good ammunition to help balance your pH and keep your pH healthy. So a final suggestion for all of you is to avoid anti-inflammatory foods that we term nightshades. So the nightshades, for instance, are peppers, tomatoes, eggplant. Those nightshades are very inflammatory, and they are not a good idea at this time. So if you can avoid these for at least another 2 months in your diet, that would be extremely helpful to keep your inflammatory response as low as possible and as healthy as possible. One final note is that, if fermented beets, a little bit of that is fine, but too much beets or beet greens contains a tremendous amount of oxalates. So let's please keep that minimal so that you can keep your inflammatory markers down. And on that note, I wish all of you a happy, healthy, and safe weekend, and stay strong. Okay, thanks very much.